Let me ask you, congregation, have you been looking? Have you been searching? Have you been praying for a podcast about Kentucky basketball and football? A show that will speak to you. A show built for you. Something powerful, fun, real, raw, and opinionated. Well, baby, open up your ears as we open up our minds. Let's do this, baby. Let's do it. Welcome to Religiously Kentucky. If it's Kentucky football and basketball, we are all about it. And we're talking about it. And we're damn sure opinionated about it. This is Religiously Kentucky. And now your hosts, Jay Hayes, the Wild Child, and J.D. Hall, the voice of reason.
Big Blue Nation, what is up? Welcome to Religiously Kentucky. I am your guy, Jay Hayes, and he is,
as always, the voice of reason, J.D. Hall.
Let me ask you, congregation, have you been...
I don't know what that's about.
Oops.
But yeah, because I didn't touch. But yeah, you know, it's my fault as usual. But what's up?
That came from your end. That didn't come from my end.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. Because I looked down and seen a light on, and I was like, "What? What's up, man?"
Nothing. I mean, other than working an ungodly amount of hours, it's freaking crazy.
About it. Yeah, it's nuts, man. We took a break.
Finished.
Go ahead.
We took 4th of July off, that weekend off, which was good. I worked that day, so I didn't have to worry about coming home. And, well, we were going to record Saturday if we recorded, so I didn't have to worry about, that. I could just relax, get my laundry done for work for the week, and then go into work. But, yeah, it's been rough. It ended up being like 52 hours of overtime just this week. So, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's wild. And then before we started, we took a little break because we're going to have a special guest join us here in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Tucker of The Athletic will join, talk a little NIL and DJ Wagner stuff. But we took a little break before we started, and I went downstairs, and my wife is all wrapped up in the Stranger Things episode.
Awesome. It's awesome.
I got to disagree.
It is, without a doubt, the best show that Netflix has put out ever.
I can't find myself to watch
it. It's okay for you to be wrong about something else, Jay.
I tried, though, because I sat down and I tried to watch it with her, and I'm like, this reminds me of a 1980s after school special. It sounded like it. It looked like it. It was just like,
what makes it an after school special? Like,
those
because it's supposed to be.
You remember after school special, low budget.
I didn't watch after school specials, Jay.
Yeah,
I came home when I watched. I came home when I watched cartoons. I didn't watch that. If there was an after school special on, I went outside.
I mean, well, I'm telling you what I think about after school specials. But that's what it puts me in mind of, like old school, low budget. Just no.
But
everybody around me loves it.
It's supposed to have that 1980s
generic
feeling.
It's the Kroger brand.
Like they're paying homage to Stephen King and his novels, and Nightmare on Elm Street with Robert Englund coming in on this season, and Vecna and killing people in their dreams and their memories. So there's a whole 80s just vibe to it because that's what they wanted it to be. They wanted it to have that feeling of nostalgia for the 80s horror and stuff like that. And
I can't.
But it's awesome. It's great. Like
everybody,
there's a meme out there of Vecna from season 4 sitting in a makeup chair, and it's above it says just waiting for July 1st.
Right.
Because that's when volume 2 for season 4 came out. the last 2 episodes for the season. I think I tweeted that out like 2 or 3 times. That I was just like Vecna, waiting for July 1st, waiting for those last 2 episodes for season 4 to come out.
You and everyone else on the planet, it seems like. So raise your hand if you're with me and just not.
And what also makes it so good, like my wife does not like horror movies. She doesn't like anything to do with horror or science fiction or any of that stuff.
I'm the same way.
She loves Stranger Things. Loves it.
Everybody does, man. My wife is the same. I'm like, and she's like glued to it. And like everybody at work is wearing T-shirts and talking about it. And I'm like, I'm by myself. No one to talk to. There's no sports.
we watched the first 2 seasons when they first came out. Like boom, boom. And then we started season 3. And I think we got like 2 episodes into it. And then, work, life, things just came up to where we couldn't finish. We fell behind. We started, whatever.
Right.
When season 4 came out, we spent a week watching season 3, all of season 3, so that we could watch season 4, because I was really suffering from a whole lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, because everybody at that time was watching Stranger Things and talking about it. And I'm here like in a corner by myself because I'm like the only person on Twitter who hasn't seen Stranger Things season 4. So
I definitely am. I passed those conversations up. Like, no.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't do it.
But now we got to wait another year for season 5 to come out. So,
my wife, I guess, is finishing it up as we speak. And I'm like, like I said, we took the break and I went down there and I got to watch 5 or 10 minutes of it. And I'm like, I'm just shaking my head. No.
You really don't like it, do you?
I just don't. I don't get it. But to each his own. I'm just different, I guess. As you say, wrong again.
You're wrong again. Yeah.
But and I'm sad because there's nothing going on, and then you hang on to that hope of, I see it every day on some sort of social media, is 54 days until Kentucky football.
Right.
53 now when you hear this, but we're in the 50s. We're getting close. And then we got the Bahamas in August. So, I mean, it's coming. It's coming up. And I'm glad y'all have to wait a year for Stranger Things, because I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of it. But no, I mean, so that's kind of where we're at. And of course, we get to see Kentucky picking up class of 23 football recruits. Some big time recruits, in-state recruits. So there's things going on.
Yeah, there's things that we're going to be able to spend, a few minutes talking about.
Right. And one thing, let me touch this real quick. The new poster came out for Kentucky basketball. Did you see that?
I did.
That's a beast poster.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give me one Thursday.
No lie, I'm a little jealous of those people that are able to go to those signings and to get that poster for this year.
Right.
So
I'm gonna get one Thursday. He will be in Georgetown. I'll be at work.
All y'all can kiss my ass. All y'all can kiss my ass.
Right. I'll try to donate. Like, hey, can I get to I'm Jay Hayes?
Nah, you don't have to worry about it. Nah, it's not a big deal.
Because Cal's gonna say, no, I'm not here to make you money. I've heard him do that. Hopefully they have Big Blue Madness camp out, because I'll be there at that as well.
Right.
But John Calipari going over the state of Kentucky for tornado relief for Western Kentucky, doing some autograph. So if you can, and it's free, but if you're able and you can, definitely donate a gift card.
Or
asking for
anything that you can donate to help out. It would have been nice to see him go to maybe 1 or 2 of the Western Kentucky communities.
Right.
But I understand, like, with practices and stuff that's going on with the team, making it out there is not necessarily the easiest thing to do right now.
Right. He's not even going to a Kroger in Lexington.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm like,
So,
damn.
but
I
it's
gotta go Georgetown. I gotta go to Georgetown.
and the shitty thing is, I'm actually going to be in Georgetown that day on my way to Florida for vacation.
Right.
But it's going to be 3.5 hours before he's going to be there. And I can't make the time work to come through at like 1 or 1:30.
Right.
And get to where I want to get to on that first day driving.
Right.
So that I don't have to get up at like 3:00 in the morning to make it to pick my kids and nephew up from the airports in Florida. So
that sucks. So everyone that gets a poster, make sure you take a pic and send it to Tiffin Wildcat and tell him what a delight.
I will block every one of you.
Right. But what did you think? Some football recruits. What did you think about the recent football commitments? 4 of them, I think it was.
They're big time. Like, you got the kid from Alabama, Khalifa Keith, running back, who's basically like a clone of C-Rod, right? And we've done really well with those type of running backs recently with Benny Snell right into C-Rod. We got Lavelle Wright on the roster right now. So they're all kind of similar style running backs. Caden Moorman is in this class as well, who's another big running back, big physical guy.
Yep.
So, and then you get Avery Stewart from Alabama. So there's 2 kids from Alabama.
Yeah.
4-star safety who chose Kentucky over Florida State. Huge get, especially at, kind of a position of need for Kentucky, because we don't really know what we've gotten in the defensive backfield going into this season and into next season. So to pick up a guy like him from Alabama over Florida State's huge. The number 3 center in the country, according to Rivals,
That's
just
huge.
picked Kentucky. And then you had Jacob Dixon out of Louisville, who's not ranked, but he's a big kid, and there's a lot of potential there.
Wide receiver,
right? He's listed as a wide receiver on Rivals, but I think he's more of like the Isaiah Cummings type.
Oh.
He's a big kid. I think he's been clocked at like a 4.4, 4.5 40, something like that. He got a 34-inch vertical. So he's that hybrid type tight end wide receiver guy that a lot of teams are having success with. With what you saw with Florida a couple years ago, Isaiah Cummings can be that guy. Keaton Upshaw is he's a little bit bigger, but he's the same type of athletic mismatch for those DBs and linebackers. So no, it's been a good week for Kentucky football, because everybody outside of Jacob Dixon that has committed in the last week is right there at that 4-star or a 4-star.
Right.
So Kobe Keenum, who picked Kentucky over Louisville, and then, the whole spin factor started with them saying they didn't really want him. There's a better, he's not that good. He's a low 3-star. Well, no, he's not a low 3-star. He's rated at Rivals at 5.7. 4-stars start at 5.8. So he's that fringe 3-4 star. So you never know what's going to happen after this season. Is he going to get bumped up to a 4-star? Because he's already really close to that.
Yeah.
So Avery Stewart's a 4-star, 5.8. Khalifa Keith, 5.5. And when you go through the entire recruiting class, they're all right on that fringe 4-star ranking. Yeah. So there's a lot of people, worried about the team ranking being at 49 right now. Well, before the week started, they were down at 60. So, and we've only got 11 commits. So there's a lot of room for that to change. Plus there's 3 or 4 4-star recruits that Kentucky is firmly in the mix for coming up too. So you got Anthony Brown out of Ohio, wide receiver. There's a future cast in for the number 2 player in the state of Kentucky. He's a 4-star. So
I was going to say there's a lot of top recruits that have Kentucky on their list.
Yeah. So
on their top 8 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah. So the concern over the recruiting class, I think, was a little premature.
Yeah.
Because we've seen what Stoops and his staff can do on the recruiting side of things for the University of Kentucky football teams. So to be concerned this early when we're still, six months from signing day, from the early signing day, was a little premature. So it's nice to see and get this good news happen. So those fans that were walking towards the cliff to jump can maybe take a few steps back from the edge of that cliff and realize things aren't really as bad as what they thought they were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let me switch gears real quick, because I wanted to talk about this, because we actually talked about this, or really brought it up because we didn't know. We didn't know at the time. We had to wait for the information to come out.
Right.
KT Turner making $200,000 more on his contract than Jay Lucas.
A lot.
With the bonuses, I think $25,000 annually a year, 50,000 bonus to win a title, all kinds of incentives.
But that base salary at $500,000 and being $200,000 more than what Jay was getting paid, that's a big deal. That's a lot. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It also shows you the reputation that KT Turner is bringing with him.
Yes.
And the respect and what Cal thinks of him as a coach.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying Jay's bad.
No.
But when you're making less than the special assistant to the head coach, who's not even an on-court coach, that speaks to kind of where you are in the pecking order for the staff and what kind of freedom or reign or input or control or whatever you want to say you're going to have in recruiting, in practices, on the bench, on the sideline, during games. That's going to say a lot about where you stand.
Right.
How much you're getting paid.
KT Turner is a better coach. I'll say it.
KT Turner definitely comes in with a much better pedigree and a much better reputation, especially on the player development side, than what Jay Lucas has. And if we all go back to that statement that Coach Cal put out after Jay left, that one of the things that they were looking for in the next assistant coach was a strong player development background.
Right.
So a lot of people took that as a shot to Jay Lucas and his player development skills. It's not really like Cal to throw shade at assistants or players that leave. But I think there might be a little bit of truth to that side of the argument, that maybe he was saying it without saying it and putting that out there to understand why he didn't put up much of a fight for Jay Lucas.
Right.
Why he let him go. Because if we're being honest, if Kentucky wanted to keep Jay,
say it again.
They would have kept Jay. They would have done what they needed to do to keep him on staff.
Right.
So the fact that they let him go so easily to Duke says a lot
you're not
about
getting the job done.
Right. And I think we all saw that. We saw, he came with that reputation of being a killer recruiter. We didn't really see that at Kentucky. Now, he was involved with Damian Collins, Tyrese Max. He was involved with these guys because of their connection to not Tyrese Maxey, because that was before he was there, but Case and Wallace and these guys. But, the talk is Case and Wallace was coming to Kentucky anyway because of his connection to Tyrese Maxey.
And he stayed.
And he stayed. Damian Collins, he wasn't on Kentucky's radar. He wasn't being recruited by Kentucky until Jay Lucas got there. So, yeah, you can really point to Damian Collins as the guy that you can really credit Jay Lucas for bringing on and bringing into Kentucky.
Who also stayed.
Right. So, and then you go back to his time at Texas. Did any of the guys he recruited there, did they develop great while they were out there on staff? While he was there on staff, so maybe there is a little bit of truth to that player development, that lack of player development on Jay Lucas's side.
Right.
So I don't think we're going to have that issue with KT Turner, because that's one of the things that everybody he's coached for, that's one of the things that they always point out about how great he is at that player development and building those relationships and being that guy. So
all that talk of when Jay first left and when we found out that it was Duke, all that talk was like, oh, this is a big time loss, has gone away.
What's wrong with the University of Kentucky basketball program?
Right.
Another loss to Duke. And,
yeah.
All
that talk disappeared.
Yeah. I said it at the time, like losing Jay Lucas is not that big of a deal.
Right.
Losing your third assistant, who's really the fourth guy on staff, not a huge deal.
My whole thing was, if Kentucky wants to keep him, they will.
They would have kept him.
They didn't want to.
Right.
So that was the whole point.
Right.
But that's where we're at now.
Right.
Do you want to do which direction do you want to go while we wait for college?
Well, we can talk about let's talk a little bit about basketball recruiting, because there have been some things going and like trending towards Kentucky and stuff like that. So Justin Edwards, I think, has been a pretty heavy Tennessee lean for a while now. But I think that's really starting to, if you listen to Jack Pilgrim and listen to those guys that are really into recruiting, it's now become, a pretty tight race, if not Kentucky a little bit in the lead,
right,
for Justin Edwards. And I think he's planning to announce during Peach Jam, which starts next week. So we'll know 17th to the 24th, I think is what it is. So we'll know pretty soon whether or not Kentucky staff has done what they needed to do to gain his commitment.
Right.
And there's a lot of talk that he really wants to go to Kentucky, but there's some people around him in his camp, that he talks to that have his ear that wanted to go to Tennessee. And not because of anything other than Tennessee was really selling him on being the guy and getting he'll be able to get as many shots and everything that he wants, Whereas if you come to Kentucky, you're not going to be the only player. You're not going to be the only guy. You're going to be one of 2, 3, or 4 main options. And we've seen in the past that players that choose Kentucky and go that route become pretty successful. It's not always the same thing when a player chooses another school just because they're being told they're going to be the guy. Because let's face it, when you get to the NBA, you're not going to be the guy. You're going to have to know how to play with other good players.
Right. And I really think that's why Kentucky players have been successful.
I absolutely, because they know how to defer. They know how to play with other great players. Yeah. So that's I think one of the things that Cal is focusing on in that recruitment is that, you're not going to be the guy when you get to the next level.
Right.
So you come to Kentucky, you learn how to play with these guys. Your status is still going to be up there. You're still going to be one of the top recruits, one of the top players coming out of college whenever it is that you go. And you're going to have that skill set of being able to play with another player. It doesn't hurt that Cal's taking that recruitment on as his own too. And he's the guy that is leading the charge in that recruitment.
Right.
So, I think that's, been the biggest switch as far as any of the players, that's really being recruited right now for Kentucky. We've got Rob Dillingham already committed. Aaron Bradshaw, I think, is expected to commit sometime within the next week or so.
And looking like Peach Jam commitment.
Could be. I think there's a little bit of talk and scuttlebutt about maybe he might still go to the G League, even if he commits to a college. I think if that was a real concern for Cal and Kentucky, I don't know if they'd still be really pursuing him all that hard and pushing for that commitment and wanting him to be, the guy. Because if you get his commitment, so now you've got Rob Dillingham, probably the best point guard in the country.
Yep.
You got Aaron Bradshaw, the number one center in the country. You get Justin Edwards, number one small forward in the country. So you're getting guys that are prototypical Kentucky recruits that we were all used to seeing show up on Kentucky's roster year after year after year, that we haven't seen lately. So now, if you look at rivals, DJ Wagner is listed as the number one point guard, but he's really considered a combo guard everywhere else.
Yep.
Justin Edwards, number one small forward. Rob Dillingham, if you take DeJuan Wagner or DJ Wagner out of there, is the number 2 point guard on there. So Aaron Bradshaw, the number one center. They're recruiting Dennis Evans, who's the number 2 center. Ron Holland on there, looks like the number 3 or 4 small forward. So the guys, everybody that they're recruiting, you've already got Reed Shepherd committed. You've got a Kingsley, who is a guy that may commit and reclass to this year.
Yeah.
And then you got him for 2 years, which if you look at him, you can see why he would need the extra year, because he is pretty raw, but he does have some good instincts defensively. But you come in this year, you can practice for a year. He's, like I said, he's still got to, I believe he has to stay 2 years if he reclasses to this year.
Where have we heard that before?
But I think it's age wise,
right?
That he would that would make him have to stay.
Are we sure?
Yeah, I don't know. But that's what I've heard. So, and it's other people that are more plugged in and more tuned in and more, tied into the whole recruiting scene than what I am. So, because let's face it, neither one of us are tied into that recruiting scene. So,
no.
anything we talk about,
I hear so many names.
Yeah.
And someone asked me, and I'm like, I don't know.
Which is why we bring these.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Which is why we bring those guys on to talk to us about that stuff, because they know these players much better than we ever will, because
they're connected.
It's their job. They're supposed to do that. They're supposed to know.
Exactly.
So
Kentucky
I had a thought, but then it just went away. So I don't even remember what I was going to say. But I think before, let's see, where are we ranked at basketball recruit? 2023 team rankings. Let's see where we're at. I think we're okay. That didn't take me to where I wanted it to go. Team rankings. Try that again. There it goes. Listeners are going to love hearing all this dead, like me talking to myself as I'm going through. So with just the two commitments, we're at number 3. And that's because on Rivals, Reed Shepherd's rated as a 4-star instead of a 5-star. So Duke is number 1, but they've got all their players committed for next season already. There's nobody else they're working on. North Carolina's at 2, we're at 3, UConn at 4, and Arizona rounds out the top 5. So
sitting good.
Yeah. And you start getting these other commitments. If you start getting these other commitments, then you move up to that top spot pretty easily. So
what is the next commitment you're looking for?
Probably Aaron Bradshaw, because there's a lot of smoke all over Twitter and everything else last week that he was going to commit.
Yeah.
So I think that's the next commitment, the next verbal that we're going to see is going to come from Aaron Bradshaw.
Right. And then
probably Justin Edwards.
And then you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I know where you're going. But there's also talk of and we're trying to hold off on that to talk with our guests. So,
yes.
But there's also talk about Ian Jackson, committing and then reclassing to 23, who right now is top, I think, the number 1 player in the 2024 class. He reclasses to 2023, he's still going to be top 3.
Right.
And he's probably the best scorer in high school basketball regardless of class.
Like, I did see something on Twitter with my 2 minutes that I was allowed to get on social media because I work so much. Was Mookie Cook.
Yeah, a
lot of talk about that.
There was when
no, I'm
he,
talking about like the Kentucky fans going nuts and
right
with a decommitment.
He's not going to be part of Kentucky's class, I don't think, because he plays the same position as Justin Edwards, and Justin Edwards is the guy they really want. And I think Mookie Cook is probably going to end up going to either Arizona or probably the G League.
Right.
If something changes with Justin Edwards, maybe Kentucky makes a late push.
Right. And I'm not knocking because he's a beast, but
right.
Any player that gets put out there and Kentucky sees, he's a Wildcat.
Right.
And it's
people go a little crazy about all that stuff. Like, any transfer they see or anything, anything. Yeah. So
I always think that's funny. It's like, it's that afternoon school special, But yeah.
And it's usually the younger fans that are part of that.
Yeah, the Tide Pod eaters. Yes.
I won't call them the Tide Pod eaters because I will. I got my kids are 20 and 21, so they're
I'm talking the younger ones than that.
But I mean, you go into the 2024 class. We were talking about how good the 2023 class could be.
Yeah.
2024, you're talking about Ian Jackson, Trey Johnson, Isaiah Elaham, Flory Badunga. Like, all these players are players that Kentucky is recruiting pretty hard and are high on Kentucky themselves.
Yes.
Carter Knox, he was one of those that was in that first round when the dead period ended of getting a scholarship offer from Kentucky. Kevin Knox's younger brother.
Yep.
So it's next, as good as this year's class could still end up being, next year's class has the potential to be even better.
Which is
crazy. Yeah. And there was a lot of our fans after the St. Peter's loss and going into the off season and going into last season, and were talking about how Cal had lost his touch. You know, he wasn't the same recruiter anymore. He didn't have that same fire. He didn't, you know, he wasn't as motivated to be great because he'd gotten comfortable at Kentucky.
Right.
I say it's amazing what having a staff under you that you fully trust does to somebody.
Yeah.
Because we know he fully trusts Orlando Antigua.
Yeah.
We now know he fully trusts Chin Coleman. With what he's paying KT Turner, he's got a lot of trust in KT Turner.
Yeah.
And having trust in your staff like that is huge, and being able to have success on the recruiting trail, because it's not the head coaches that make the first contact with these players.
Right.
And build the first relationship. It's the assistant coaches that reach out and do that. It's the assistant coaches that do the first scouting and bring these players to the head coach before anything else happens. So if you've got these guys who aren't really great at building relationships or aren't really great at closing those relationships and getting the commitment, like we may have seen from one or two other former coaches that were on Kentucky staff the last few years, it's going to hurt what you're going to be allowed to do when you're out there on the recruiting trail.
Right.
And yeah, Calipari, as the head of the program, is going to handcuff you and make you prove that who you're bringing to him, who you're recruiting, what you're doing, make you prove to him that it's the right thing, that it's the right player to recruit. That's the guy that you want, that he wants on his roster. And he's got that trust and you know, because that relationship they had when he first got to Kentucky, you know, as a coach anyway, you know, that relationship goes back a lot further than just as a coach. And I think Chin Coleman, like what we saw on the sidelines last year between Coach Cal and Chin Coleman, wasn't a bad thing. You know, I think it proved to Cal how much Chin Coleman wants to win and how fiery he is and how dedicated he is to the success of that team and that program. And now you bring in KT Turner, who has the backing of Larry Brown, one of Cal's mentors.
Yep.
You know, that's going to pull and hold a lot of weight for him when he's trying to decide how much trust he's going to have and what you can do for him as an assistant coach.
Yeah. Kentucky's although I think after next year's class, Cal's gone. Cal's done. After the 23-24 class, I believe Cal is done.
I think I give him 3 years. I give him 3 years. That'll put him to what, 66, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably about where we can start really looking at Cal to start to step away and start thinking about whether or not he's going to continue. Because who knows? He may end up coaching until he's 75. We don't know.
Hopefully.
But
I like Cal.
But it could be one of those things where we're starting to see him starting to transition and maybe thinking about what he's going to do next.
Right.
And being ready to step away from the game of basketball as a coach anyway. Because when you're a guy like Calipari, you're never going to be able to fully step away from the game of basketball.
Right. It's in your blood.
Yeah. You know, because he's got that, you know, people laugh about the lifetime contract that he has. But that he's going to have a job at the University of Kentucky for as long as he wants.
Right.
You know, so right there, he's connected to basketball. If he wants to stay and be that brand ambassador to kind of work on to the next coach and help build that and keep that brand going for the next guy.
Right.
Or he could transition to ESPN and become an analyst and then studio guy, because we know Cal likes to talk.
He has that. He has that.
You know?
Yeah. So I'm saying 2, you're saying 3.
I think 3 is the minimum. Yeah.
Right.
I think 3 is the minimum. Because I think he'll want to see some of these guys, if they don't end up being one and dones, see them through.
Right. You know
You
what
know?
made me think too? When you offer an in-state junior,
I mean,
that made me think like, well, wait a minute, he ain't far from leaving.
Let's be real. Like, that was huge.
Yes.
For Cal and Kentucky.
Yes.
Because we don't see him offer those in-state guys that early.
Nope.
Normally. Now he did with Reed, obviously, going into it because he played his junior year with a Kentucky offer.
Yeah. Legacy recruit.
But yeah, there was a different reason or different type of situation there. If he hadn't offered Reed Shepherd a scholarship, you think fans were bad just for the loss to St. Peter's? Yeah. Imagine if he doesn't offer Reed Shepherd's kid, who's a top 30 player in the country.
Yeah. Right.
But to offer a 6'1", 6'2" point guard from the state of Kentucky who's not overly athletic, who doesn't play great competition before his junior year.
Right.
Like that raises some not questions, but it's a wow, really? Like what do they see in this kid that in 2 years where do they think he's going to be?
The first thought that went through my head was, wow, Cal's almost done.
Why is that?
And that's why because he doesn't do that. That's something he does not do.
Yeah, but fans have been asking for him to change his recruiting philosophy and things for the last few years. And I think that's just part of the natural progression of changing. If there's a kid in the state of Kentucky who's rated that highly and that good, he's going to offer him. And that's something that, I like to see it, but it's not necessarily something that has to be done. So
2 years. And you're saying 3. Hopefully we get 10 more.
Yeah, let's hope. But joining us from The Athletic, our buddy Kyle Tucker. How you doing, Kyle? Can you hear me? I can see you. Can you hear me, Kyle? All right. You're good.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Oh man. Here we go again.
Right.
Let me try this. I'm going to try and mute you and bring you back in. All right.
He's going to reboot. But
yeah.
StreamYard, man.
I think this is like the curse that we're going to have when we bring Kyle Tucker on.
Oh, I know. I'm just happy it's not my fault this time.
Who knows? I mean, it may not be like really anybody's fault. It could just be that dumbass like computer glitch or whatever.
Yeah.
He just texted me with 2 laughing, crying emojis. It could just be this stupid technology. Technology is great when it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be nice. Our fans will get to see this when I upload the video to YouTube in a couple of weeks. They'll get to see the whole
the outtakes are always the best.
They're not going to hear it because, when they listen to it, because it's going to just sound like we brought Kyle Tucker in, everything worked great, and then we left. But those that watch the video, those that go and watch the video, they're going to get to see all of the.
You get to see the Justin
Edwards T-shirt with Chewy
Justin Rogers.
Oh yeah, because we were just talking about Justin Edwards.
I know, because I about said it too.
You about said it too. That's what. Yeah.
We were just talking about him, but yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's crazy, and this only happens with Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, nobody else.
It's crazy. One of the biggest guests that we get on here, we always have issues with the internet. Unbelievable.
If not, then we'll just talk about it ourselves. But we can give our thoughts as fans on all that stuff too. So instead of having somebody that's a professional tell us.
Right.
I wonder if there's something like in his computer that's turned off or something like that.
Probably. I would say. But I can't even get my computer to work, so.
Yeah, your other computer's completely fucked.
Who knows?
Right. You hook it up and it doesn't, StreamYard doesn't even recognize that you have a camera and a mic on it.
No. It just pops up and goes, hell no. Ain't working today. Get your other one out.
Yeah. Which at least you've got another computer that you can switch to. So
Right.
All right, let's try this again.
All right.
How you doing, Kyle?
Could be settings, microphone. Settings in here. It's not any settings for you, is it, JD?
I don't think so. Check audio. No, that's just showing mine. Guess nothing general. There's nothing in here for me to do that.
Okay, I was just wondering. So it could be in Kyle's settings.
What about try unplugging your headphones, Kyle, and try it that way. See if anything happens. Oh, never mind. You beat me to it. If you want, you can go ahead and try and use your phone. Just use your phone for the video and do it that way, like we did the last time.
I'm telling you, StreamYard is weird sometimes, dude. Like it won't, like on my other computer,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm having. Remember this time it wouldn't let me do anything, but
Right.
last time it wouldn't let me talk. Like it was saying that something in my computer had me muted or something. I'm like, I don't have any. It said something about Zoom or something. I was like, I don't have Zoom.
Right.
Like,
I don't know. I hate technology. I mean, I love technology, but I hate technology because
right.
it's shit like this that happens. And, you know, it is what it is. You know, hopefully, I think he's switching over to his phone, maybe. Hopefully that works.
I do this little show with a friend of mine in Arizona called Fresh BS,
Yeah.
conspiracy theory stuff, and pretty cool stuff. But I'm all into that. So, aliens to the guide stones being destroyed,
Right.
everything.
When do you have time to record that one?
So we did that a long time ago and just stopped because I didn't never have no time.
Oh, okay. So you don't do it anymore.
And just recently he hit me back up and was like, man, people been asking for that, man. We need to do that again. And I'm like, all right. And we just haven't done another one yet. So
all right, we're gonna give this another try.
all right. What
How you doing,
up?
Kyle? Can you hear us?
I can do it this way.
Oh, there we go. We got sound. Hey,
Yeah.
it worked.
Patience.
I have no idea what's going on with this.
Me either.
And it seems like honestly, you're the only person we've ever had this problem with. And now it's the last two times. Like we didn't have an issue the first time you came on with us.
Yeah, I don't know. And I do other kind of like online, streams or whatever.
Right. So, but thanks for taking time out. I know you just got home from vacation. You had a long drive, so we won't keep you too long. But over the last week or so, there's been a couple of things for Kentucky fans blowing up on Twitter. The first one was Christian Conyer going to Tennessee and picking Tennessee over Kentucky. And that had a nice little chunk of the fan base kind of losing their mind because the thought was it was NIL and that stuff that caused him to go to Tennessee over Kentucky, and that Kentucky wasn't talking about the NIL with these players. They weren't, bringing any of this stuff up in the recruiting visits. And I think that was a narrative that's being pushed by one of the bigger radio shows in Kentucky. And then you come out and tweeted about the day before or whatever, they had a meeting with a bunch of businesses and stuff from the city of Lexington with Mitch Barnhart, coaches and players there all talking about it. So as far as NIL goes, what really is the deal with Kentucky, and are they pushing this and talking about a lot with recruits, or are they kind of handcuffed and not being able to do the things that the coaches want to be able to do?
It's probably a little bit of both. I mean, I do think do think Mitch Barnhart and the administration are a little cautious about the collective piece of things, like as we've come to know collectives, which is just boosters throwing in saying, here's this pot of money and we're using it and we're going to promise every offensive lineman $100,000 or whatever. And I don't think they really want to be a part of that because it's by the letter of the law. It's actually still not one of the things that should be really legal. And the NCAA has talked about cracking down and having a task force. And I know people say, well, they're probably not going to. Why should we believe they're going to be able to get their arms around this? And that's a fair point too. But I don't know that you just want to dive in on the assumption that they're not going to hit anybody.
Exactly.
Because the way people think is like, they're never going to punish the heavyweight. They're going to punish the up and comer. And while Kentucky might be the heavyweight in basketball, in football, they're viewed as the up and comer. So are they going to hit one of the big boys if they decide to hit somebody? Or are they going to hit somebody that has historically been at the bottom and suddenly climbing their way up? So, I think there's some caution there, but I don't think they're in a situation where, Barnhart is just actively against NIL in general. I think he's made it clear to just be careful about the other stuff. Like let's not just be brazenly like here's our pile of money because we're going to use for recruiting. That is not what NIL was meant to be.
Right. And I think that was one of the things that was put out there right at the beginning, that pay to play was strictly was still going to be prohibited. You can't promise these kids money to get them to come to your school.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing at some of these schools like Tennessee and Miami. And let's be honest, probably Texas A&M as well.
Right.
So I understand that side of the administration being like, let's not go all crazy with this. Let's do this and make sure we're doing everything by the book or the way they say it should be done, regardless of what these other schools are doing.
Yeah. And if you look at Oscar Shibwe and Will Levis, like they're examples of what NIL is supposed to be, which is if you have created value on your name, that you can get that value on your name. Like Oscar Shibwe became the National Player of the Year and came back to school. He has real value. Like any deal you want to do with him, he has real name brand value as a representative of your business. Will Levis is the same way. Like he became a star quarterback at Kentucky and he's reaping the benefits. And I think without saying, here's a pile of money and everybody we sign is going to get a piece of it. You can just point to guys like that and say, look, if you come here and you're a good player, there's going to be money.
Right.
And I think it was kind of a weird take with those examples out there. And also like a couple weeks after Robert Dillingham, a 5-star basketball recruit, cited NIL as one of the reasons he chose Kentucky.
And I was just going to bring that up as well too.
I don't think I would say, and other people like Chris Livingston, McDonald's All-American who's on the roster right now, he and his family talked about how Kentucky just nailed that pitch and it was more detailed. You talk to a lot of recruits and talk about, especially with basketball, that the presentation was more detailed and thoughtful and explanatory, and there's a system in place to help you manage it more than here's the dollar amount. But if you come here, obviously you're a Kentucky basketball player, you're going to do well. I think it's true even in football. Like you say, people say, well, but football and basketball are different. Not really, not if you're successful. Like if you're a successful SEC football player, it doesn't matter where. Like Will Levis, if you're leading Kentucky to 10 wins in the SEC,
right? And you're eating bananas with the peel and all, and you're on Good Morning America.
You got that personality, and again, that goes back to like what is it supposed to be, and that's what it's supposed to be. Guys that are marketable for a reason, whether it be because they are a personality or because they are highly successful or both. And so, I think the truth, like many things, the truth about this situation is somewhere in between. Like there's obviously some hesitation to just go all in. And I know there are fans and now probably the coaching staff that just feels like, hey, look, if it's a renegade world and everybody's doing it, let's do it because we want to keep up. I get that. I get the coaches feeling that way. I get certain fans feeling that way. But I also understand why you would take a more cautious approach as at the top of the leadership food chain. All of that said, I think if anything that's presented to their compliance department as a legitimate NIL deal, will sign off on. And so I don't think they're standing in the way.
Have they denied any NIL deals yet that you're aware of?
I assume so. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine there are some that get shot down, because there are some that are like, outrageously over the top, and there are some that, like, because people don't necessarily understand, some deals get brought to them that you can't do. Like,
right.
You still can't hand a guy a piece of your merchandise and have him wear it in a game. Like,
right.
Like he can't like be out there actively advertising for you, like in game, in competition, things like that. But like, is Mitch discouraging, people who want to put together a collective and throw a big pot of money? Maybe he is. But I don't think it's as adversarial in general as people make it out to be. I mean, I think there's a healthy debate to be had about whether or not he should throw in on collectives. Like, I get both sides, but that includes understanding why you would kind of pump the brakes on it.
And I don't think a lot of these fans that were getting as upset, like, I mean, they even started the Fire Mitch Barnhart hashtag on Twitter. I don't think those fans really understand, like, the school can't put together the collective. It's something that has to be done outside the power and the scope of the school.
Yeah. It's also incredibly small mind. Yeah, right. There's a lot of misunderstanding. I'll say that, like, people like, why didn't Kentucky needs to put together a collective? Well, they cannot. Nobody can do that. You literally can't do that. Kentucky,
the businesses in town, like, they have to get together and they got to set up this collective and put that money in and get it going.
And if your frustration is just that Mitch is out there telling, and I don't know for a fact that he is, but it's been put out there that he's kind of discouraged people or told people this is illegal. For one, he's right about the idea that you're just throwing in and using it to lure recruits. It is. By the letter of the law, it is illegal. Investing in a pool of money that's set aside and says, this group of businesses has put this money together in a pot to say, hey, when a guy gets here and he, X guy becomes a star, I want my money to go towards that. Then that's fine. I mean, if they're legitimate deals, they're okay.
Right.
But to address the whole idea that, like, on this issue, it has people ready to hashtag fire Barnhart. And I disagree with Mitch on a lot of things, like selling alcohol to the average fan and a number of things. But that is an unbelievable take, because he's the guy who hired Mark Stoops. He's the guy who stuck by Mark Stoops when he was not winning. He's the guy who gave Mark Stoops all of the things he needed to become finally successful in football. He is the man.
Gave him an extension before he even had a winning season.
He's the man finally responsible for bringing their facilities to an SEC level in everything, not just football, but it was sorely lacking in football. There was a time when the famous picture on the internet of the little folding tables in a corner and a projector screen in the corner of Nutter Fieldhouse was where they host recruits.
Yeah.
Now they have an SEC stadium. They have an SEC practice facility. They're going to get an SEC level indoor facility. Their coaches are paid as well as anybody. Mark Stoops is a top 10 salaried coach, even though he's never, I mean, I don't say this to be insulting, but he hasn't won a championship. He hasn't won East Division. He hasn't won an SEC. He hasn't been in the football playoff, and he's a top 10 coach in salary.
Right. There
are 3 men on the coaching staff who are making over $1 million a year, both coordinators and the recruiting coordinator, making $1 million a year, in addition to your head coach being top 10 pay. I mean, the guy you want to fire over one issue is the guy who has upgraded all of these things to a historic level. And then, that doesn't even factor in, all of the secondary sports that he has given investment to facilities and coaches and made them competitive. They just had 11th place or 9th place?
Ninth place. Yeah. Ninth place.
9th place finish in the Director's Cup, their highest ever for all sports.
Right.
They've won championships in volleyball and rifle and been to a women's college World Series, but a tennis national championship
match
runner-up.
I mean, the women's track team and what they're doing.
I mean, they literally are. They're like Track U now. I mean, they are putting out world-class track athletes. And again, by the way, in the SEC, where like there's a bunch of bad boys and bad girls in the SEC in track and field. I mean, LSU, Florida, all those, Tennessee. And so I think it's a little short-sighted I think it's fair to critique and to question and to debate, like, is he being too slow to act on this? Is he being too cautious? But it's just weird for a school that's got a history of NCAA issues,
right,
and doesn't ever want to, be on the Kentucky Shame Sports Illustrated cover,
right? Because it's not like there's not a target on the back of Kentucky sports.
That you now have an athletic director who's trying to do everything he can to keep you out of trouble.
Right.
I think, I think that the rage against the athletic director campaign is probably a little misguided.
Right. So let me ask you this: if Kentucky doesn't get with this pay for play NIL, do they get left behind on their way up? That's the thinking of a lot of fans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think you've probably got to strike a balance there, or make a decision there. I think I will say one area that is quite open to critique with Mitch is just his ability to come out and speak publicly about why. You hear from him periodically, and sometimes he makes people mad with what he says, and then he just vanishes. I'd like to hear from him. A lot of people would like to hear from him about why. Explain your thinking. Explain if it's even accurate. Rebut this. Are you out there discouraging businesses from contributing? And in what way? Are you encouraging them in one way and discouraging them from a way that you think is towing the line of illegality? I do wish you would talk more about it so we would understand that. But yeah, that is a question. Are they going to get left behind? I mean, but of course, 2 days after this whole firestorm starts up, they get a 4-star recruit from, a hotbed state where everybody in the country is trying to get them. And, there's obviously you're going to miss on some guys if you don't, because now there's a whole new generation of players who they and their families are going to be looking for. Give me the big deal.
Right.
But I don't think all are that way. Like, as I understand it, Cason Wallace, freshman on the basketball team this year, like, he and his family are like, I don't care. Doesn't matter. He doesn't need a car. He should walk to class. Like,
old school.
Not everybody is just like, what can you give me? It's like, where can I go be successful? What's your reputation developing this position? Or, guys to the pros.
And what happens when they get that money and don't produce?
Right. I mean, there's a million questions about this. Like, it's hard to imagine that 2 years from now, the market's going to be this way, because I don't care how many rich boosters you have or how rich they are. How many years in a row are they going to pony up for nothing?
Yeah.
Because 4- and 5-star recruits bust all the time in college football, all the time in college football, not as much in basketball, but all the time in football.
All the time in football. Yeah.
And a lot of programs are built on high 3-star guys. Are you gonna really ask your boosters to give a 3-star recruit, 6 figures year after year after year?
That was one of the things me and Jay talked about, before you came on. Kentucky's recruiting class in football is all high 3-star recruits, and then Avery Stewart being the only 4-star right now. But every single one of them is right there on that cusp of being a 4-star recruit. Yeah. You're not going to have boosters ponying up $4.5 million for a 3-star recruit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think that this is going to play out more over time, and the market will adjust a little bit. And so, do you really want to go headlong into something that might ultimately get you in trouble if it's not even going to be the landscape in a few years? I mean, surely there's going to become some legislation about, what do we really deem NIL, and having a process for having to prove it. And then the other piece of it is maybe the NCAA is not even in charge of football soon. Like, the way these conferences are expanding and potentially just pushing everybody else out, and there's 50, 30 to 50 teams that are the heavy hitters in football, and they have their own governing body. In which case, I think all bets will be off, and they'll just be salaried employees.
Right.
And guess what? Like, it'll be the haves and the have-nots again. And if you don't have as many millionaire boosters as the other guy, you're going to get screwed that way too. I mean, that's kind of just the way the world works.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a very complex issue. I don't think it's like just black and white one way or the other. I don't absolve Mitch of any responsibility. And I don't lay all the blame at his feet. I mean, and also sometimes you just have a down recruiting year. Like, it might not have as much to do with NIL as you think it does. Like, Kentucky lost John Summerall was like arguably the best recruiter on the staff. Right there with Vince. I mean, certainly with out-of-state players. They lost their star offensive coordinator, who people were signing up, left and right to play for Liam Cohen.
Yep.
They talk. Look at all the skill guys who signed in that class with Liam Cohen as offensive coordinator.
Right.
Would they lose 3-4 assistants? They lost their offensive line coach to Alabama. I mean, they had a huge turnover on their staff, including a couple of major recruiting figures.
Yep.
And we're only a few months removed from that.
Yep.
Could it be as simple as you lost a bunch of your recruiters and you have new staff and they didn't have the connections? Like,
stop thinking logically, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it is all NIL, but there are other factors that you could easily look at and go, well, maybe these guys will just take a little time to get their feet under them.
Right.
So I don't know. I do think there's a little bit of overreacting, but the other piece of it, I'll say, like, Stoops lends some credibility to the critique when he comes out and says what he says on Kentucky Sports Radio. And he's basically openly begging donors to step in and saying, this is legal, do it. This is legal, do it. I mean,
right. But that also leads you to believe that it's not stuff that's coming from inside the athletic department that's limiting the NIL. It's the boosters themselves and the businesses aren't stepping up to provide those deals.
Or are there enough of them? Is there more than one billionaire who's like actively giving huge amounts to Kentucky athletics? I mean, we all know about Joe Kraft, but like, are there other mega billionaires?
Right.
I guess RJ Corman, right? The Cormans have provided private jets and things like that over the years. Like, but how many billionaires does Kentucky have that are going to be like aggressive givers, and how many does Texas have? And Texas A&M. I mean, like the state of Texas. I think there are more billionaires in the state of Texas than there are in the rest of the world combined.
That oil money hits different.
Yeah, and so there's also billionaire and there's like super billionaire. Like T. Boone Pickens was like single-handedly funding Oklahoma State athletics. And how much blood can you get out of one turnip? It becomes a question. Like, there's a million questions about this that I don't think it's as simple as just boiling it down and going like, this is Mitch's fault. Fire Mitch. Fire Mitch. Fire Mitch is a crazy thing to say about football in particular. Like, this guy is ruining football. Like, they're a nothing football program without all the moves he's made in the last.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. They were as low as you could get.
Yeah.
When when I started covering Kentucky football in 2011.
That last season of Joker was not a good season.
No, and I mean, he hired Joker, so you have to put that on him.
And that's what like some of these people were pointing to. Like, he hired Joker Phillips and he hired Billy Gillispie. But he made the changes necessary to move on from them pretty quickly. Joker had 3 years, Billy 2 years, and they were like, okay, this isn't working. You got to go. We got to get somebody else in here to see if they can turn this around. And obviously he made the right hire with John Calipari. He's obviously made the right hire with Mark Stoops. And he gave Stoops that time to build what he needed to build to get back to that level. Because I think there was a stat at one point, Mark Stoops was one of like 3 coaches in the country that either met or exceeded the previous year's record in like his first 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to blame Mitch for really anything that's going on and expect to fire him over losing one recruit. Because that's what it was. When Christian Conyer picked Tennessee, like the meltdown started.
Yeah.
And they lost their mind. And then, it came out that he didn't pick Tennessee because of NIL. Like it was more of a relationship that he had with the coaching staff and coaches on staff there that swayed him to go to Tennessee. So,
right.
Like you, I think it was just a little short-sighted to just lose your mind over the NIL when we really don't know what it's going to be, and we don't really know what's going on with everything around and inside the program.
Well, and again, I would say, like, I know they're different programs, but if Oscar's allowed to make $2 million in NIL, is anybody really holding back NIL at Kentucky?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
I mean, they aren't. They can't be. I mean, how
No.
how does Oscar make that kind of money if that's the situation he's in?
Right. Exactly.
And by the way,
they've
basically gone to war for the last year trying to
get Oscar
to be able to earn NIL money. Like, they have expended so much time and energy and effort in that. So at every level of the university, and so if one program is thriving and one is not in NIL, like, maybe examine the other factors.
Right.
And moving on, the other big thing that kind of caused a Twitter meltdown, it wasn't necessarily for Kentucky fans, was the news from the national writers that things may have started to switch for DJ Wagner from Kentucky or from Louisville to Kentucky. Now, me and you have talked a couple of times that the staff has always been confident the whole time. So do you think it's not necessarily a switch, but more the national guys getting more in tune with what Kentucky is feeling about the situation?
Yeah, I mean, my read on it would be more that it's being sort of portrayed as like this horse race, and Kentucky was way out front, and then Louisville shot ahead with Kenny Payne and hiring Milt, and Louisville ran out to this big lead, and I mean, it was amazing to see all these people picking, not just like saying Louisville's in good position, but predicting Wagner to Louisville. When never, ever, ever at any point did Kentucky waver on that they think they're getting them. And I think I probably brought up on this show, but I know I've brought up many times other places, like all this talk about Milt and Kenny's relationship with the family. Well, they got his grandfather. Of course, he's going to go there now. Really discounted like all the relationships that exist at Kentucky. His brother is on the team at Kentucky. His former teammate Lance Ware is on the team at Kentucky. They're probably almost certainly going to get Aaron Bradshaw, his other teammate. So he's going to have 3 teammates and his brother on the team. And then there's the Cal and Dewan and even Milt relationship. Like even with Milt at Louisville, like Milt loves Cal. Milt owes Cal a great deal. And Dewan owes Cal everything. He feels like he owes him everything. He wouldn't have made any money in his pro career if Cal hadn't encouraged him to kind of be his first real one and done. So there are deep relationships. And Cal has a relationship with DJ's mom going back forever. And DJ's mom has a say in this. It's not just, I don't think that one person is just making this decision for DJ Wagner. And so I think people got really swept up in and I'll say this, I mean, to be fair, it's almost 100% hit rate when you hire a relative that you're going to get the player.
Right.
And then Mark Evan, but like it's a really high success rate when you hire a relative that you're going to get the player. I mean, Cal hired Milt himself in Memphis when he was getting Dewan. But this is just a different situation. Like there are other factors. I mean, how many other situations do you have one relative on the staff and then one relative for the other team, like on the team, on the other team? And so just and from what I gather, Kentucky never did feel like they had slipped in that race. And so I think this current buzz is that
word is finally getting out of the confidence level out of Lexington. Word is getting out of where Kentucky stands, and people are sort of like scrambling back to the, to the reality of the situation.
Right.
And now it's like,
and I
okay,
think,
maybe it's not Louisville.
and I think it was, there was Cal was in Spain watching DJ and those recruits over there, and I believe Kenny Payne stayed back in Louisville and didn't make the trip to Spain to watch DJ play in that FIBA tournament. So I think we just lost Kyle.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's picking yours up because I can double hear it. Like I can double hear.
Well, my headphones aren't Bluetooth.
Like now that he's gone.
Yeah.
Perfect. And he might have noticed that.
I think maybe when I started talking, he heard it. I can't wait till I get a new computer so I can plug it directly in.
Right.
Like
Kyle Tucker.
I mean, it's not Kyle's fault. Like
No.
So we'll see if he jumps back in, and then we'll finish that conversation.
But it's not my fault this time. I'm just happy about that because it was my fault for the last year. But these things, man, I talk to a lot of podcasters, and these things happen all the time. Anytime you're recording with somebody in a different state or somewhere on a live stream.
Right. I just hate that it's happened now the last two times that we brought him on.
Oh, I know.
And it makes
it just him though.
Yeah, and it makes me feel like,
yeah,
we're doing something wrong, and we're bringing him on to talk with us, and this shit doesn't work.
Right. It's just him though. It's crazy.
Yeah. You're gonna have a lot of editing to do.
Yeah. It was all good until we started.
Right.
Then it didn't get any of that. Like it was that bad.
Yeah. We'll start that over. We'll start back over with the DJ stuff if we get him back on. If not, we'll just go into the dumb. If he texts me or whatever, we'll just go back into the dumb shit and we'll end the show. And if he doesn't jump back in, then you edit all this stuff out, and all we talked about was NIL with Kyle.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Kyle. And enjoy the rest of your night. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The magic of editing.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to get back on with his computer.
Maybe he was like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah, but the weird thing is he hasn't texted me say, hey.
Right. He could still be there and not recognize it. Could be, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. There he is. He's back.
You started sounding like a robot, and then
we were here just saying. I could kind of understand what you were saying, so that's why I kept it going. But yeah. So let's move on to DJ.
Yeah.
You know, that was the second thing that kind of blew up on Twitter this week was the national guys like Travis Branham starting to flip and move to Kentucky being the choice for DJ Wagner after they'd all put in future cast and crystal balls for Kentucky or DJ Wagner to Louisville after they hired Milt. Me and you have talked how Kentucky staff hasn't wavered in their confidence in the whole DJ Wagner thing. Do you think this is a situation of it's actually flipping back to Kentucky, or that the national writers are just now getting a feel of how confident the Kentucky staff is in the situation?
Yeah, I think more of the latter. I think there were a lot of assumptions made. I do think someone at Louisville was obviously confident and telling people that they felt confident, because I respect a lot of the people who were kind of saying, hey, DJ, Louisville leads, or predicting DJ's going there. But I would say all the way through, Kentucky was super, super confident that, he was ultimately going to pick them. It's this kind of unusual situation because, to be fair to everybody, picking Louisville, it's a super high hit rate when you hire a relative.
Yep.
I mean, probably very close to 100%. When somebody hires a relative, they get them. I mean, Cade Cunningham committed to Kentucky on his visit.
Right.
But that was never going to happen because ultimately the family said, "Wait, your brother works at Oklahoma State."
Right. You're going to go play for him.
And he was gone like the second that Cade Cunningham was gone. And so,
yep.
I think it's reasonable that once they hired Milt, people kind of went that way.
Right.
But this is such an unusual situation because it's not often that like one school hires your granddad, but the other school has your brother on the roster. And
right.
like two of your team, one of your teammates, Lance Ware, probably two when they get Aaron Bradshaw. And so they're going to have three guys who he played with, and one of them is his brother. And
right.
then you have Cal and the family connection that goes back 20 years. Cal recruited Dewan and coached Dewan and encouraged Dewan to go after 1 year when he could have come back, and it would have helped him more at Memphis. But it's the only reason Dewan got paid, because Dewan had a litany of injuries and then ultimately a career-ending illness. If he doesn't go pro when he does, he may never make a dime really in the NBA.
Right.
And so, I just think there are unusual factors at play in a situation where one school did hire a relative, and usually that's like the nail in the coffin for everybody else. But this is just not the same. And I think Kentucky has never wavered that they thought they could and would get him. And I think it's interesting what happened, this last week where, Team USA is playing in the U17 World Cup. Cal was there. Kansas City came back from recruiting early to coach his team because, he wanted to see those guys. I think there's a confidence level that accompanied that after he went to Spain to see not only DJ, but also Ron Holland and a handful of guys in the next recruiting class. Also, Kenny Payne did not go to Spain to watch DJ Wagner. And so, was that a concession? I don't know. Nolan Smith went over there for Louisville, but and Nolan had a kind of strange cryptic type tweet about his trip over there that didn't necessarily seem like he had come back with a lot of confidence. And so, I think a lot of people now maybe see some of the writing on the wall and have gotten caught up on how confident Kentucky is. And maybe that confidence game is sort of waned coming out of Louisville.
Right.
I wonder too at times, like, was it to Louisville's benefit to put it out there that they thought they had him locked up, and for whatever period of time, could that help you get some momentum with other prospects if they think they're coming to play with DJ Wagner? Could it, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what reason Louisville had to be so confident. And look, it's not over. I mean, who knows? Maybe Louisville comes up with the NIL deal of the century, and that plays a part, or
How do you feel? How do you feel right now about the situation and where DJ's going?
How do I feel about it?
Personally,
I have never felt anything other than he was going to go to Kentucky, and that's still how I feel. I mean, people. That the other thing I think we're conditioned to like read into these things that happen, and like when they got Dillingham, I think a lot of Kentucky fans saw that as like that was their backup plan. And if he's coming to Kentucky, that means DJ's not. The plan all along was to get them both. And I know that when Kentucky decided to go all in on recruiting Rob Dillingham, Cal flew to New Jersey to sit down with the Wagners and talk about it. Make sure that was cool, and they could and would and wanted to play together, and they did. They did and do, I think. And so I never thought even when they got Dillingham, I didn't think, oh, that means they're not getting DJ, because I think the dream was to get them both, and still is. By the way, Reed Shepherd's pretty good. It's not a bad backcourt if they have all three of those guys.
I'm trying to do some things to try and get rid of this sound.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening now.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. Like, we got most of the conversation.
Does it sound like are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got most of it.
I'll text him and let him know.
Well, we definitely appreciate the patience and the information from Kyle Tucker. As you heard him talk about NIL. With that, I will always do my part and buy a t-shirt for NIL. And as well as DJ Wagner, Kyle Tucker has always felt confident that it was Kentucky, that it is going to be Kentucky. So you heard from there, and we end with technical difficulties. That just sucks. But we appreciate Kyle and being patient and working through that, and apologize for the end there of the breakups. It happens when you podcast.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it seems to happen only when we have Kyle on. So it's like the universe doesn't want us to talk to Kyle Tucker anymore.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it keeps on. Yeah, I don't know. So definitely thanks to Kyle for sticking with us and working through some of the issues that we've had the last couple of times. So
yeah, and being patient.
We do appreciate that. Yeah,
definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you want to save the dumb shit for the next?
We can. Like we're going.
Save it.
We're going long right now.
Yeah. Let's save it up.
Yeah, and then we'll do a bigger one the next time. So
yeah, that works.
I'm hoping I hope Kyle gets my text and doesn't try and jump back in here. So I texted him to let him know that he doesn't have to get back on here.
Right. Well, Big Blue Nation, follow Kyle Tucker on Twitter at Kyle Tucker _ATH. And follow me, Jay Hayes, on Twitter at JHayesKY. You can also follow JD, the voice of reason, at Tiffin Wildcat on Twitter. Also, Kyle Tucker, if you want the inside scoop, subscribe to The Athletic.
Yes.
And get all those great stories, man. Kyle is the man. And you heard him say he has always felt that
Mhm.
DJ Wagner was a Kentucky Wildcat.
Yep. So
I like to hear that.
yeah, and talking to him, that's where I said like his confidence has never wavered,
Right.
and what's going on, and what he's being told from the staff and the confidence that they have that it's still going to be DJ picking Kentucky in the end. And I think just the national guys now are starting to really get wind of that, and that's where the change is coming from in these picks. And Travis Brand pulling his crystal ball pick back from Louisville to Cloudy. And then you have Jamie Shaw, who just a month ago was not even a month ago, 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, talking about how it was a Louisville lock. It's a done deal. But we talked about it then. The first line before he said that was things can always change in recruiting. And I said it then that I felt like that line was making everything else, like that was covering his ass for everything else he was going to say.
Right.
And then a couple of days ago, he comes out with his article saying he was putting in his future cast or whatever they called it on 3 with a 95% confidence rating. Now, how is it a done deal to Louisville 3 weeks ago, and now you're to the point where you're putting in a 95% pick for Kentucky?
Right. So stick around, Big Blue Nation, and find out. I got a feeling we're going to find out soon. But like I said, we appreciate Kyle Tucker for joining. Subscribe to The Athletic. Get all the great stuff from Kyle. And follow JD, follow myself. We appreciate you guys for sticking around.
Yeah,
and this will be edited, so you can go watch the YouTube video to see all the craziness. Make sure you do.
Yeah. So the people who listen to this on podcast, you're going to get probably a nice little 50-minute podcast, right? The people that go and watch this on YouTube are going to see all the struggles that we had recording this tonight. So if you want to see us, if you want to see us look like a couple of idiots trying to get this done and that stuff, just wait a couple weeks, and I'll put it up on YouTube, and you can laugh at us for an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah. I'm your guy, Jay Hayes, and he is
JD Hall.
And we are Religiously Kentucky.
Sadly, we're at the end. You've been listening to Religiously Kentucky. They say all good things must come to an end, and this was a damn good thing. But the good news for you is we'll be back soon. Thank you for listening to Religiously Kentucky. As you can see, we are not passing around the offering plates. Instead, we just ask you that you tell a friend about the show and tell them that the podcast is available on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And you can find us on all social media platforms. Until next time, Big Blue Nation, this is Religiously Kentucky, signing off.